if the Jedi freed Anakin's mother immediately? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Qui-Gon Jinn should be dead. The Sith's blade went straight through him, but he survived. And now he's going back. Not to Coruscant, not to the Jedi Temple, to Tatooine. Because Qui-Gon Jinn made a promise. He looked a slave woman in the eyes and told her he would return. He took her son and swore he wouldn't forget her. And while he lay dying on that hangar floor, while his life slipped away, one thought burned brighter than the pain. He left her behind. He left Shmi Skywalker in chains. That ends today. The Nubian starship cuts through Tatooine's atmosphere like a blade. Qui-Gon sits in the hold, his hand pressed against the scar where the Zabrak nearly killed him. 2 weeks in a Bacta tank. 2 weeks of nightmares about a mother crying for her son. 2 weeks of knowing that the Jedi Order saved the galaxy but abandoned one innocent woman to slavery. No more. Obi-Wan glances back from the pilot's seat, concern written across his face. Master, the Council didn't authorize this mission. If they find out, there will be consequences. Qui-Gon's eyes are calm but unyielding. Then let there be consequences. We took her son. We promised her hope, and then we left her to rot. Tell me, Obi-Wan, what kind of Jedi does that make us? Obi-Wan has no answer. He turns back to the controls and says nothing. Because deep down, he knows his master is right. They saved a galaxy, but they forgot one woman, and that woman's suffering could destroy everything they've built. The boy they're training, the chosen one himself, carries that guilt like a chain around his heart. Every nightmare, every moment of doubt, every flicker of darkness traces back to one simple failure. They left his mother behind. But what if they didn't? What if Qui-Gon went back? What if one act of compassion rewrote the entire future of the galaxy? The ship touches down at the edge of Mos Espa, and Qui-Gon rises slowly, his hand briefly touching the scar on his abdomen. Obi-Wan moves to support him, but the older Jedi waves him off. I need to do this myself, Obi-Wan. Stay with the ship. If the Hutts get wind of what we're doing, we may need to leave quickly. Obi-Wan nods, though concern is written across his face. May the Force be with you, Master. Qui-Gon steps out into the Tatooine evening, pulling his hood up against the sand that swirls in the warm wind. The streets are quieter now than they were during the Podres, but the same desperate energy pulses through them. Slaves hurry past with their heads down. Merchants call out prices for water and salvage. Somewhere in the distance, a dewback bellows. Qui-Gon walks with purpose, his stride steady despite the pain that still lingers in his core. He remembers the way to Watto's shop as if he left yesterday. The toy Darien is hovering behind his counter when Qui-Gon enters, his wings buzzing irritably as he argues with a Rodian over the price of a hyperdrive motivator. The moment he sees the Jedi, his eyes widen, then narrow with suspicion and barely concealed anger. You Jedi! You stole my slave. You think you can just walk back in here? Qui-Gon remains calm, his presence filling the cramped shop with an unexpected serenity. I didn't steal him, Watto. I won him fairly. And now I've come to discuss another matter. Watto's snout twitches with disdain. I have nothing to discuss with you. You cost me my best slave. That boy was worth more than you could ever pay. Perhaps. But his mother is still here, isn't she? Watto freezes mid-flutter. His eyes dart nervously toward the back of the shop, then back to Qui-Gon. What about her? What do you want with Shmi? Qui-Gon reaches into his robes and produces a credit chip. He sets it on the counter with a soft click. I want to buy her freedom. The toy Darien stares at the chip, then bursts into harsh, mocking laughter. Buy her? Huh. You think I'm stupid? She's all I have left thanks to you. And with the boy gone, her value just went up. She works twice as hard now, probably hoping I'll sell her to someone who'll take her to her precious son. No deal, Jedi. No deal. Qui-Gon's expression doesn't change. He simply reaches out with the Force, not to manipulate Watto's mind, for that would not work on his species, but to sense the truth of the situation. What he finds makes his jaw tighten. Watto is afraid because without Anakin's mechanical genius, his business has been struggling. Afraid because he owes money to the Hutts. Afraid because he knows, deep down, that he is a small creature in a galaxy that eats small creatures alive. That chip contains 50,000 Republic credits, Qui-Gon says quietly. More than enough to clear your debts and start fresh. I know about your arrangement with Gardula. I know she's been pressuring you. This could make all your problems disappear. Watto's wings slow their buzzing. His eyes fix on the chip with naked greed warring against stubborn pride. How do you know about that? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is what you're going to do about it. The way I see it, you have two choices. Take the money, release Shmi, and live comfortably for years. Or refuse, and I will make it my personal mission to ensure that every authority in this sector knows exactly what's happening in your shop. The Republic may not have jurisdiction here, but the Hutts don't like competition, and they really don't like loose ends. It isn't quite a threat. Not exactly. But Watto understands the implication perfectly. His wings droop, and for a moment, he looks almost defeated. Then his grasping nature reasserts itself. 60,000. And you never come back here again. Qui-Gon allows himself the smallest of smiles. Agreed. He produces a second chip and slides it across the counter. Now, where is she? Shmi Skywalker is in the back room, mending a torn power coupling when she hears the door open. She doesn't look up at first, assuming it's another customer or one of Watto's contacts. But then she feels something. A presence, a warmth, a sense of calm that seems to radiate through the dusty air. She raises her head and sees him standing there, the tall Jedi Master who changed her life forever by taking her son away. For a moment, she thinks she might be dreaming. Shmi Skywalker, Qui-Gon says gently. My name is Qui-Gon Jinn. Do you remember me? She rises slowly, her hands still holding the coupling. Of course I remember you. You took my Ani. Is he all right? He's more than all right. He's training to become a Jedi. He's healthy and safe, and he misses you terribly. Every day he asks about you. Every night he worries about you, and that's why I'm here. Shmi's breath catches in her throat. What do you mean? Qui-Gon steps forward and takes her work-worn hands in his own. I made a mistake, Shmi. When I freed Anakin, I should have freed you too. I told myself there wasn't time, that I would come back, but the truth is, I wasn't thinking about what was right. I was thinking about the mission, about the prophecy, about what Anakin could become. I forgot to think about what kind of man he would become if he spent his whole life knowing his mother was still in chains. I won't make that mistake again. You're free, Shmi. Watto has agreed to release you. If you want to, you can come with me right now. I can take you to Anakin. For a long moment, Shmi doesn't move. She simply stares at Qui-Gon, her eyes filling with tears that she refuses to let fall. Then, slowly, she looks around the room that has been her prison for so many years. The tools, the workbenches, the cot in the corner where she has spent countless nights dreaming of her son. This isn't a life. This has never been a life. It was just survival. And now, impossibly, she's being offered something more. When she speaks, her voice is steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. I don't have anything to bring. Nothing here is mine. Qui-Gon squeezes her hands. You have everything that matters. You have your courage, your kindness, your love for your son. Everything else we can figure out together. Shmi nods slowly, and for the first time in years, a genuine smile crosses her weathered face. Then let's go. Let's go see my Ani. The journey from Tatooine to Coruscant takes 3 days in hyperspace. During that time, Qui-Gon explains everything to Shmi. He tells her about the Jedi Order, about Anakin's incredible potential, about the prophecy of the Chosen One. He doesn't hide the challenges ahead or the Council's initial resistance to training her son. He is honest about the difficulties Anakin will face and the attachment the Jedi are taught to avoid. But he also makes her a promise. Whatever happens, Anakin will never have to choose between being a Jedi and loving his mother. The Order can adapt. It must adapt. If it can't make room for basic human compassion, then it doesn't deserve to call itself a force for good. Shmi listens to all of this with the quiet wisdom that has sustained her through decades of hardship. She asks questions, thoughtful questions, questions that make even Qui-Gon pause and reconsider his own assumptions. What if the Council refuses to accept me? What if my presence makes things harder for Anakin? What if I become a distraction from his training? These are the questions of a mother who has spent her whole life putting her child's needs above her own. Qui-Gon's heart aches as he realizes how much she has sacrificed and how much more she would sacrifice if she thought it would help her son. "You are not a distraction," he tells her firmly. "You are his foundation. Everything good in Anakin comes from you. His compassion, his courage, his determination to help others. These aren't weaknesses to be trained out of him. They're the very qualities that will make him the Jedi he's meant to be. And if the Council can't see that, then I will make them see it when they finally drop out of hyperspace above Coruscant." Shmi presses her face to the viewport like a child seeing snow for the first time. The planet-wide city stretches below them, an ocean of lights and towers and movement that defies comprehension. She has spent her entire life in the desert, surrounded by sand and slavery and the brutal simplicity of survival. This is something else entirely. This is a world where people actually live rather than just exist. "It's beautiful," she whispers. "Is this where Ani lives now?" Qui-Gon nods. "The Jedi Temple is just ahead. He's waiting for you." In the temple's training halls, Anakin Skywalker is struggling to concentrate. He's supposed to be practicing his forms, moving through the basic lightsaber katas under the watchful eye of Master Windu. But his mind keeps wandering. Ever since he arrived on Coruscant, he's been plagued by dreams of his mother. Dreams where she's suffering. Dreams where she calls out to him and he can't reach her. Dreams where he wakes up with tears on his cheeks and an ache in his chest that no amount of meditation can ease. "Focus, young Skywalker," Mace Windu says, his voice sharp. "Your form is sloppy. A Jedi must be present in the moment, not lost in thought." Anakin grits his teeth and tries to obey. He moves through the kata again, his training saber humming through the air. But it's no use. His heart isn't in it. His heart is on Tatooine with the woman who raised him, who loved him, who let him go because she believed it was best for him. Then, suddenly, he feels something. A presence in the Force. Familiar, warm, impossible. He freezes mid-swing, his eyes widening. His training saber clatters to the floor, forgotten. Without thinking, without permission, he turns and runs. "Skywalker," Master Windu calls after him. "Where do you think you're going?" But Anakin doesn't hear him. He's already gone, sprinting through the temple corridors with a speed that surprises even the older Padawans who dive out of his way. He doesn't know how he knows. He just knows. She's here. His mother is here. He bursts through the temple doors and skids to a halt on the landing platform. And there she is, standing beside Qui-Gon Jinn, wearing simple traveling clothes, looking smaller and older than he remembered, but also more beautiful than anything he's ever seen. For a moment, neither of them moves. They just stare at each other across the distance, mother and son, separated by space and time and the cruelty of a universe that never should have torn them apart in the first place. "Mom?" The word comes out as barely a whisper, but Shmi hears it. Of course she hears it. She would hear her son's voice across the galaxy. "Annie." And then they're running toward each other, running across the platform, running until they collide in an embrace that nearly knocks them both off their feet. Anakin buries his face in his mother's shoulder and cries. Really cries, for the first time since he left Tatooine. And Shmi holds him, stroking his hair, murmuring words of love and comfort and promise. "I'm here," she says. "I'm here, Annie. I'm not going anywhere. We're together now. We're going to be okay." From a distance, Qui-Gon watches with a smile on his face. Beside him, Obi-Wan has emerged from the ship, and even he can't help but be moved by the scene. Behind them, Masters Windu and Yoda have arrived, alerted by the commotion. Mace's expression is stern, disapproving, but Yoda simply observes, his ancient eyes taking in everything. "Unorthodox, this is," Yoda murmurs. "Against the Council's wishes, you have acted, Qui-Gon." Qui-Gon turns to face them, his posture respectful but unrepentant. "I've acted according to the will of the Force, Master. The boy cannot be what he's meant to be if he's constantly torn by guilt and fear for his mother. This was the right thing to do. You know it was." Yoda is silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nods. "See what becomes of this, we shall. Much uncertainty there is. But perhaps, right you may be. Perhaps." Over the following weeks, Shmi Skywalker settles into a new life. It's not easy. Nothing about leaving behind everything you've ever known is easy, even when what you're leaving behind is a life of servitude and pain. But she approaches it with the same quiet determination that she brought to surviving as a slave. She learns, she adapts, she grows. Qui-Gon arranges for her to stay in a small apartment in the temple's outer districts, close enough that Anakin can visit regularly, but far enough that she won't interfere with his training. It's a modest space, but to Shmi, it feels like a palace. There's running water, climate control, a window that looks out over the city. She cries the first time she takes a hot shower, and she's not even embarrassed about it. But Shmi doesn't want to just exist in her new life. She wants to contribute. She wants to matter. So she begins looking for work, putting her mechanical skills to use in the temple's maintenance division. The droids and vehicles that the Jedi rely on need constant attention, and Shmi discovers that she has a gift for it. The same instincts that allowed her to keep Watto's shop running smoothly serve her well here. Within months, she's become an indispensable member of the support staff, respected by everyone who works with her. And through it all, there's Anakin. He visits her every evening when his training allows. They eat dinner together. They talk about his day, his lessons, his frustrations with the Council. She listens with patience and wisdom, offering advice when he asks for it and simply being present when he doesn't. She becomes his anchor, his touchstone, his reminder that no matter what happens, he is loved unconditionally. The change in Anakin is remarkable. The other Padawans notice it first. He's still intense, still driven, still possessed of that barely contained energy that sets him apart from his peers. But the edge is softer now. The anger that used to simmer just beneath the surface has cooled. He laughs more easily. He sleeps more soundly. He approaches his training with enthusiasm rather than desperation. Obi-Wan notices it too. As Anakin's new master, following Qui-Gon's partial retirement due to his injuries, he has a front-row seat to the transformation. The boy he inherited was brilliant but volatile, powerful but undisciplined. The young man he's training now is something else entirely. Anakin still has his moments of frustration, his flashes of pride, his tendency to push boundaries, but underneath all of that, there's stability, there's peace, there's a foundation that wasn't there before. "You're doing well," Obi-Wan tells him one evening after a particularly grueling sparring session. "Your form has improved tremendously. Your connection to the Force is stronger than ever. I'm proud of you, Anakin." Anakin grins, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thanks, Master. I feel different, you know. Like I can actually focus now. Like I'm not carrying this weight anymore." Obi-Wan nods. That weight was guilt, fear, worry about things you couldn't control. It's hard to become what you're meant to be when you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Your mother's presence has freed you in a way that no training ever could. Anakin's expression softens. I used to have these dreams. Nightmares, really. About her suffering, about me being too far away to help. I thought they were visions, warnings. But they stopped the moment she arrived. It's like the Force was trying to tell me something, and I finally listened. The years pass. Anakin grows from a boy into a young man, his power in the Force expanding with each passing month. He completes his training with distinction, impressing even the skeptics on the Council with his dedication and skill. His flying abilities become legendary, his lightsaber technique refined and deadly. But what truly sets him apart is his compassion. He volunteers for relief missions. He advocates for the forgotten and the marginalized. He becomes exactly the kind of Jedi that Qui-Gon always believed he could be. Through it all, Shmi remains a constant presence in his life. She's aged gracefully in the years since her liberation, the lines on her face speaking of wisdom rather than weariness. She's become something of a grandmother figure to the younger Padawans, who often seek her out for comfort and guidance. The Council has long since stopped questioning her presence. Even Mace Windu has been known to share a cup of tea with her from time to time. And then, one day, everything changes. The separatist movement has been growing for years, and the galaxy is on the brink of war. Anakin, now a skilled Jedi Knight, is assigned to protect Senator Padme Amidala following an assassination attempt. He hasn't seen her since they were children, since those brief days on Naboo when she was a queen and he was a slave boy who promised to marry her someday. When they meet again, the connection is immediate and undeniable. She's no longer a queen, but a senator, fierce and passionate in her advocacy for peace. He's no longer a slave, but a Jedi, powerful and confident in ways that take her breath away. They talk for hours, catching up on the years between them, and something deeper begins to bloom. But this time, when Anakin falls in love, he doesn't fall alone. He doesn't hide it behind walls of shame and secrecy. Instead, he goes to his mother. Mom, I need to talk to you. Shmi looks up from the power coupling she's been repairing, sensing the weight in her son's voice. Sit down, Annie. Tell me what's on your mind. Anakin sinks onto the workbench beside her, his expression a mix of joy and confusion. I think I'm in love. With Padme, Senator Amidala. I know I shouldn't be. The code says we're not supposed to form attachments, but I can't help what I feel, and I don't know what to do. Shmi sets down her tools and takes his hands in hers. Let me ask you something. Does loving her make you want to be a worse person or a better one? Anakin doesn't hesitate. Better. When I'm with her, I want to be the best version of myself. I want to protect her, not because I'm afraid of losing her, but because she deserves to be safe. I want to make the galaxy better for her. Then that's not attachment, Shmi says gently. That's love. Real love. The kind that lifts you up instead of weighing you down. The Jedi are right to warn against possessive attachment, against the fear of loss that drives people to do terrible things. But love itself is never wrong, Annie. Love is what makes us human. Anakin stares at her, feeling something loosen in his chest. You really think so? Shmi smiles. I know so. I loved your father, even though he was taken from me. I loved you, even though I had to let you go. That love never made me weaker. It made me stronger. It's the only reason I survived all those years, and it's the reason you're the man you are today. Don't be afraid of your heart, Annie. Trust it. With his mother's blessing, Anakin approaches his relationship with Padme differently than he otherwise might have. He doesn't hide it from Obi-Wan, who sighs deeply but ultimately offers his support. He doesn't lie to the Council, instead formally requesting an exception to the attachment guidelines and making his case with the same passion he brings to everything. The debate is fierce. Mace Windu leads the opposition, arguing that exceptions undermine the very foundations of the Order. But Qui-Gon, now serving in an advisory capacity, speaks in Anakin's defense. And so does Yoda, surprising everyone. Changed the galaxy has. Change the Order must also. Cling to old ways we cannot, if serve the living force we wish to. Love the chosen one does. Destroy him, this love will not. Strengthen him, it shall. Allow this, I believe we should. The vote is close, but in the end, the Council agrees to permit Anakin's marriage on one condition. It must not interfere with his duties as a Jedi. It must not compromise his judgment in the field, and if it ever does, the arrangement will be reconsidered. Anakin agrees without hesitation. He knows, with a certainty that comes from his deepest self, that loving Padme will never make him less of a Jedi. It will only make him more. The wedding is small and private, held on Naboo with only a handful of guests. Obi-Wan stands at Anakin's side. Shmi weeps tears of joy as she watches her son exchange vows with the woman he loves. And in that moment, standing in the light of the Naboo sunset, Anakin Skywalker feels complete in a way he never has before. But the galaxy doesn't pause for happiness. The Clone Wars erupt with devastating fury, and Anakin finds himself on the front lines of a conflict that will shape the future of the Republic. He fights alongside Obi-Wan, leading clone troopers into battle after battle. He becomes a legend, the hero with no fear, the pilot who can fly anything, the warrior who has never met a challenge he couldn't overcome. The first major battle tests him in ways he never expected. On Christophsis, surrounded by separatist forces, Anakin must lead a desperate defense while Republic reinforcements are still hours away. The situation seems hopeless. Clone troopers fall around him. The enemy advances. For a moment, the fear threatens to overwhelm him. Then he thinks of his mother, of everything she endured, of the strength she showed in the face of impossible odds. If she could survive decades of slavery without losing her soul, he can survive one battle. He rallies his troops, he coordinates the defense, he flies his starfighter through impossible maneuvers, taking out enemy armor that's about to breach the lines. When the reinforcements finally arrive, they find Anakin still standing, exhausted but unbroken, having held the line through sheer determination. It sets the pattern for the entire war. Battle after battle, crisis after crisis, Anakin proves himself. On Felucia, on Ryloth, on 100 worlds whose names will become synonymous with either victory or sacrifice. He takes risks that would kill lesser pilots. He makes tactical decisions that veteran generals question until they work. He becomes the symbol of Republic resilience, the hero that propaganda loves to celebrate. But unlike other heroes, Anakin doesn't let the fame go to his head. He remains connected to the people around him, to his clone troopers, who he treats as individuals rather than numbers, to the civilians caught in the crossfire, who he risks his life to protect, to his fellow Jedi, who he supports and encourages even when they doubt themselves. On Jabiim, one of the war's bloodiest battles, Anakin witnesses horrors that would break many warriors. He sees friends die. He sees atrocities committed by both sides. He comes face to face with the reality that this war has no clean victories, no unambiguous heroes, no easy answers. That night, sitting in a bombed-out building, surrounded by the sounds of distant conflict, he writes a letter to his mother. He tells her about the fear, the doubt, the moments when he wonders if any of this is worth it. He pours out his heart in a way he can't with anyone else. Her response arrives a week later, forwarded through military channels. It's simple, but powerful. Ani, the darkness you're fighting isn't just out there. It's inside all of us. But you have something most people don't. You know what it's like to be powerless. You know what it's like to suffer at the hands of others. That knowledge is your weapon against the darkness. Never forget it. Never let the war turn you into someone who creates suffering instead of ending it. Stay true to who you are. I believe in you. Always. Mom. He keeps that letter with him for the rest of the war. Reads it before every major battle. Remembers it every time he's tempted to cross a line, to compromise his principles, to become the very thing he's fighting against. The Clone Wars also bring him into contact with other Jedi who will become important allies. Ahsoka Tano, his Padawan, who challenges him and pushes him and helps him become a better teacher. Plo Koon, whose wisdom and compassion inspire him. Kit Fisto, whose humor keeps morale high even in the darkest moments. Each relationship strengthens him, adds another thread to the web of connections that keeps him anchored. When Ahsoka is framed for bombing the Jedi Temple hangar, Anakin refuses to accept the Council's judgment. He investigates himself, driven by absolute certainty that his Padawan is innocent. His faith is vindicated when he exposes the true bomber, but the experience leaves scars. Ahsoka chooses to leave the Order, and Anakin respects her decision even as it breaks his heart. But unlike another version of events, this parting doesn't embitter him against the Jedi. He understands why Ahsoka needs to find her own path. He stays in contact with her, offering advice and support whenever she needs it. Their bond remains strong, even when their paths diverge. And through it all, there's Padme. Their relationship deepens during the war, forged in the crucible of shared danger and separation. They steal moments together whenever possible. Brief holocalls, midnight meetings, precious hours that feel like seconds before duty calls them apart again. I hate this war, Padme tells him one night, lying in his arms in their apartment on Coruscant. I hate what it's doing to the galaxy, to the Republic, to you. Anakin strokes her hair. I know, I hate it too. But we're fighting for something important. A galaxy where people like my mother don't have to suffer. Where children don't grow up as slaves. Where the strong can't exploit the weak without consequences. She looks up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Sometimes I'm afraid we're losing that. Afraid the war's turning the Republic into something as bad as what we're fighting against. Maybe it is. Anakin's voice is quiet, but steady. But that's why we have to stay vigilant. Why we have to keep reminding people what we're fighting for. The day we forget, the day we start thinking that victory justifies any means, that's the day we've truly lost. When did you become so wise? Padme asks, a hint of a smile crossing her face. I have a good mother and an even better wife. Yet even in the midst of war, he remains grounded. He returns to Coruscant whenever he can, spending precious hours with Padme and his mother. He doesn't carry the weight of hidden guilt, doesn't feel the constant pull of secrets and lies. When the nightmares come, as they sometimes do, he wakes up knowing that the people he loves are safe. That knowledge gives him strength. And Palpatine? Chancellor Palpatine has been watching Anakin Skywalker for years. He has been nurturing him, cultivating him, preparing him to become the apprentice who will help him destroy the Jedi and rule the galaxy. But Palpatine is discovering that this Anakin is not the one he expected. This Anakin doesn't simmer with repressed rage, doesn't harbor secret resentments, doesn't carry the kind of wounds that can be exploited and twisted. This Anakin is happy, balanced, at peace with himself in ways that make him resistant to the dark side's seductive whispers. It's frustrating beyond measure. My boy, Palpatine says during one of their private meetings, you must understand how the Jedi are holding you back. They don't appreciate your gifts. They don't trust your judgment. They would have you suppress your emotions, deny your connections, become something less than human. Anakin smiles, but there's a knowing look in his eyes that gives Palpatine pause. With respect, Chancellor, I don't think that's true. Oh, the Council has their rules, and I don't agree with all of them, but they've also supported me in ways I never expected. They allowed me to marry Padme. They welcomed my mother into the temple. They've given me a home. I'm grateful for that. Palpatine's smile freezes. Yes, how fortunate for you. He tries other angles. He speaks of the war, of the sacrifices being made, of the need for stronger leadership. He hints at secrets the Jedi are keeping, at corruption within the Senate, at a galaxy spiraling out of control. But every time he plants a seed of doubt, Anakin seems to find a way to uproot it. He discusses Palpatine's concerns with Obi-Wan, with Padme, with his mother. He processes them openly rather than letting them fester. He refuses to be isolated. The war grinds on. Years pass, and slowly, Palpatine begins to realize that his plans may need to change. Anakin Skywalker is not the weapon he hoped for. The boy's strength comes from his connections, not his isolation. His power is rooted in love, not fear. He is, against all odds, exactly what the Jedi have always claimed to aspire to be. A guardian of peace, a servant of the light, the chosen one in truth, not just in prophecy. But Sidious has not survived for decades by being inflexible. If he cannot turn Anakin, he will destroy him, and if he cannot destroy him directly, he will find another way. The trap is elegant in its simplicity. Palpatine arranges for Padme to be captured during a diplomatic mission taken by separatist forces to a fortress world in the Outer Rim. He ensures that Anakin is the one who receives the distress call. He counts on the young Jedi's love for his wife to cloud his judgment, to drive him into a reckless rescue attempt that will end in tragedy. What he doesn't count on is Shmi. When Anakin receives the news about Padme, his first instinct is exactly what Palpatine expected. He wants to go immediately. He wants to burn through hyperspace, storm the fortress, tear apart anyone who stands between him and his wife. The fear and anger that Palpatine has been trying to cultivate for years finally have something to grip on to. But before he can race to his starfighter, a hand catches his arm. Shmi is there, her eyes calm but firm. "Ani, wait." Anakin tries to pull free. "Mom, I don't have time. Padme is in danger. I know, and you love her. I know that too. But think for a moment. Why now? Why this mission? Who told you where she was being held?" Anakin's racing thoughts stutter. "What are you saying?" Shmi's voice is gentle but insistent. "I'm saying that something doesn't feel right. The timing is too perfect. The information is too convenient. Someone wants you to do exactly what you're about to do. Running off alone, driven by fear, that's not the Jedi way. And more importantly, it's not the man you've become." For a long moment, Anakin is silent. He stands there, trembling with the need to act, warring with the wisdom of his mother's words. And then, slowly, the haze of panic begins to clear. She's right. Of course she's right. He's been trained for this. He knows better. "Okay," he says finally. "Okay. We do this the right way." Instead of racing off alone, Anakin assembles a team. He coordinates with the Jedi Council, with Republic intelligence, with the best minds available. They analyze the information about Padme's location and discover inconsistencies. They trace the source of the distress call and find connections to known separatist intelligence operatives. They realize, slowly and with growing alarm, that the entire operation is a setup. And when they dig deeper, they find something even more disturbing. The trail leads back to Coruscant, to the Senate, to the Chancellor's office itself. It's Obi-Wan who puts the pieces together. He's been suspicious of Palpatine for months, troubled by the Chancellor's influence over Anakin and his growing power within the Republic. Now, with the evidence laid out before him, the terrible truth becomes clear. "Anakin, I don't know how to say this, but I believe Chancellor Palpatine may be a Sith Lord. Any other Anakin might have rejected this accusation outright, might have defended his mentor, his friend, the man who has shown him such kindness over the years. But this Anakin has learned to trust his instincts. He's learned to listen to the people who love him. And when he reaches out with the Force, really reaches out, opening himself fully to its currents, he feels something he never noticed before. A darkness at the heart of the Republic. a shadow wearing a kind man's face. "We need to be sure," he says quietly. "Before we act, we need to be absolutely sure." They set a trap of their own. With the Council's approval, Anakin requests a private meeting with Palpatine, ostensibly to discuss the rescue mission for Padme. But this time, he goes in with his eyes open. He watches, he listens, he waits. "My boy," Palpatine says, his voice dripping with concern. "I heard about Senator Amidala. Such terrible news. I want you to know that I've already dispatched emergency forces to attempt a rescue. You should go with them. Show those separatist animals what happens when they threaten the people we love." Anakin keeps his expression neutral. "Thank you, Chancellor. Your support means a great deal. But I've been thinking. The Jedi have taught me that acting on fear and anger leads to the dark side. I should approach this situation with patience and wisdom. Don't you agree?" Something flickers in Palpatine's eyes. Anakin has seen that flicker before, but he never knew what it meant. Now he does. "Patience is well and good," Palpatine says carefully. "But sometimes, in situations like this, we must be willing to do whatever it takes to protect those we love. The Jedi would have you suppress those feelings. They would have you stand by while your wife suffers. Is that really the path you want to walk?" Anakin takes a step closer. "What are you suggesting, Chancellor?" For a long moment, Palpatine is silent. He studies Anakin's face, searching for something. The desperation he expected to find isn't there. The fear isn't there. There's only calm, patience, and something else. Suspicion. Palpatine makes a decision. If Anakin won't be turned, then he must be eliminated. But that can wait for another day. For now, he maintains his mask. "I'm merely suggesting that you trust your instincts," he says smoothly. "You've always known what's right, Anakin. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." "Thank you, Chancellor. I'll keep that in mind." Anakin leaves the office with his suspicions confirmed. The way Palpatine probed his emotions, the subtle encouragement to embrace his fear, the carefully veiled offers of power, all of it points to one terrible conclusion. The man who has presented himself as the Republic's savior is actually its greatest enemy. But confronting a Sith Lord is no simple matter. Anakin knows he cannot face Palpatine alone, so he returns to the Jedi Temple and shares everything he's learned with the Council. The revelation sends shockwaves through the Order. Some refuse to believe it, others are grimly unsurprised. Mace Windu takes command, organizing a task force to confront the Chancellor. Yoda dispatches messages to Jedi across the galaxy, warning them of potential treachery. And Anakin stands at the center of it all, the chosen one preparing to fulfill his destiny. He takes one last moment to speak with his mother before the confrontation. "I might not come back from this," he tells her honestly. "I need you to know that whatever happens, you saved me. When you came here, when you gave me a home again, you changed everything. I'm not afraid anymore. I know who I am, and I know what I have to do." Shmi cups her face in her hands, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You've always known who you are, Ani. I just helped you remember. Now go. Save the Republic. Save the galaxy, and then come home to us." The confrontation in Palpatine's office is nothing like what the Sith Lord expected. He anticipated confronting Anakin alone, perhaps with Obi-Wan at his side. He planned to kill them, frame the Jedi for attempting a coup, and use the chaos to seize absolute power. But when his doors burst open, he finds himself facing not 2 Jedi, but a dozen. Mace Windu leads the strike team. Anakin stands beside him. Behind them are some of the greatest warriors the Order has ever produced. "Chancellor Palpatine," Mace Windu says, his voice hard as Dura steel. "You're under arrest for treason against the Republic." For one moment, Palpatine's mask slips. His face contorts with fury, his eyes blazing yellow as the dark side surges through him. Then the mask returns, smoother than ever. I see. So the Jedi finally reveal their true nature. How fitting that you should attempt this coup while the galaxy burns. This isn't a coup, Anakin says. This is justice. You've been manipulating this war from the beginning, playing both sides against each other, grooming me to become your weapon. It ends now. Palpatine smiles, and the expression is nothing like the kindly grandfather he has pretended to be. It is cold, cruel, ancient. You think you can destroy me, boy? I am the Senate. I am the Republic. I am the dark side itself. And you are supposed to be my greatest creation. What a disappointment you turned out to be. He moves faster than should be possible for a man his age. His lightsaber ignites in a blur of crimson, and suddenly he is among them, cutting down Jedi with savage efficiency. 2 fall in the first second, 3 more in the next. His power is overwhelming, fueled by decades of accumulated darkness, but the Jedi don't break. They regroup, they coordinate, and they fight back. Mace Windu engages Palpatine directly, his purple blade meeting red in a clash that shakes the walls. He drives the Sith Lord back with the ferocity of Vyapad, channeling Palpatine's darkness against him. The Chancellor snarls and retaliates with a blast of Force lightning, but Anakin is there, deflecting the attack with his own blade. Together, Mace calls, "Don't give him room to breathe." They attack in perfect synchronization, blue and purple lightsabers weaving a deadly pattern. Palpatine is forced onto the defensive, his earlier confidence wavering. He kills another Jedi with a vicious thrust, but it costs him. Mace scores a hit on his arm. Anakin nearly takes his head. "Impossible," Palpatine hisses. "I've foreseen your defeat. You cannot destroy the Sith." "Watch us," Anakin says. And then he does something unexpected, something that catches Palpatine completely off guard. Instead of pressing the attack, Anakin takes a step back. He closes his eyes. He reaches out with the Force, not to strike, but to connect. He thinks of his mother, standing in Watto's shop, hearing the words that would change her life. He thinks of Qui-Gon, wounded but determined, making the choice that no one else would make. He thinks of Padme, waiting for him, believing in him. He thinks of everyone he loves, everyone who loves him, everyone who has helped make him who he is. And through those connections, he finds something that Palpatine has never understood. Strength. Not the strength of anger or fear, but the strength of love, the strength of belonging, the strength of knowing that you are not alone. The Force surges through him like nothing he has ever experienced. It fills him with light, with peace, with absolute clarity. And when he opens his eyes and re-enters the fight, he moves like no Jedi has moved in 1,000 years. His lightsaber is everywhere at once. Every strike is perfect. Every movement is effortless. He is not fighting Palpatine. He is dancing with the Force itself, and the Force is choosing him. The battle transforms. What was desperate becomes inevitable. Palpatine throws everything he has at Anakin. Lightning that could crack planets, Force techniques that predate the Republic, tricks and traps accumulated over a lifetime of scheming. But Anakin moves through them all like water through stones. Mace Windu falls back, bleeding from a wound on his shoulder. Other Jedi lie injured around the room, but Anakin keeps advancing. His lightsaber sings through the air, leaving trails of blue light. His footwork is perfect, each step exactly where it needs to be. His breathing is steady, his mind clear. This is what the Chosen One was meant to be. Not a weapon of destruction, but an instrument of balance. Not a slave to fate, but a master of choice. The prophecy spoke of one who would destroy the Sith, and now that prophecy is being fulfilled. But not through anger, not through hatred, through love. Palpatine's face contorts with disbelief. He spent decades studying the dark side, unlocking its deepest secrets, believing that power was the only thing that mattered. And now he's facing proof that he was wrong. that there's a strength greater than what the dark side offers, a power that can't be corrupted because it's rooted in connection rather than isolation. How? Palpatine gasps, barely blocking a strike that would have taken his head. How are you doing this? Anakin's response is almost gentle. You never understood. You thought the Force was a tool to be used, a power to be accumulated. But the Force isn't something you use. It's something you serve, something you become part of. And when you truly surrender to it, when you stop trying to control and start trying to connect, it gives you more than you could ever take. He presses forward, his attacks coming faster now. Palpatine stumbles, his yellow eyes are wide with something approaching fear. For the first time in decades, the Sith Lord faces an opponent he cannot manipulate, cannot predict, cannot defeat. Padme, Palpatine hisses desperately. Your precious wife, I'll kill her. I have agents everywhere. Even if you strike me down, she'll die before sunset. Anakin doesn't falter. He knew Palpatine would try something like this. The way of the Sith is to threaten what you love, to use your connections against you, to make you choose between compassion and action. But Anakin has already made his choice. He chose love when he let Padme into his heart. He chose trust when he revealed their relationship to Obi-Wan. He chose connection when he built a life with people who support each other, protect each other, fight for each other. Padme is stronger than you know, Anakin says, and she's not alone. None of us are. He brings his lightsaber down in a diagonal slash. Palpatine blocks, but the force of the blow sends him staggering. Anakin follows with a spinning strike that clips the Sith Lord's shoulder, then another that catches his thigh. Palpatine is falling apart. His carefully constructed mask has shattered. The kindly grandfather is gone, replaced by the monster that was always underneath. He snarls and screams, throwing Force lightning with abandon, but Anakin catches it on his blade, channels it harmlessly away, and keeps advancing. The other Jedi watch in awe. This isn't just combat, it's transcendence. They're witnessing something that will be remembered for 1,000 generations. The moment when the Chosen One fulfilled his destiny. The moment when the Sith were finally destroyed. Palpatine's eyes widen with something approaching fear. This isn't possible. No one can be this strong. No one can be this pure. He has spent his entire life studying the dark side, accumulating power, preparing for this moment. And now, faced with the fullness of the light, he realizes that he never truly understood the Force at all. You are right about one thing, Anakin says, his voice calm. I am the Chosen One, but not yours. He brings his lightsaber down in a final decisive stroke. And Darth Sidious, the phantom menace who has plagued the galaxy for generations, falls. The aftermath is immediate and overwhelming. Alarms blare. Guards rush in. For one terrifying moment, it seems like the situation might spiral out of control. The Chancellor is dead. Jedi are standing over his body with ignited lightsabers. Without context, it looks exactly like the coup that Palpatine always claimed to fear. But Anakin has prepared for this. Even as he fights to catch his breath, even as his body trembles from the exertion, he activates the recording device he placed in his robes before entering the building. Palpatine's confession plays for all to hear. His admission of being Sidious, his threats against Padme, his attempts to seduce Anakin to the dark side. The recording changes everything. What could have been a political disaster becomes a revelation. The guards lower their weapons. The Jedi are vindicated. And the truth, finally, comes out. The next few days are chaos. Senate hearings, military briefings, media coverage that runs around the clock. Everyone wants to know how a Sith Lord infiltrated the highest levels of the Republic. Everyone wants to assign blame, take credit, understand how this happened. But for Anakin, the days are quiet. He returns to his apartment and holds Padme for hours, not speaking, just grateful that they survived. He visits his mother and sits with her in comfortable silence. He speaks with Obi-Wan, finally unburdening himself of the guilt and fear that he's carried throughout the war. "I could feel it," Anakin admits. "During the fight, the dark side, calling to me, telling me to give in to my anger, to destroy Palpatine with hatred instead of love." Obi-Wan nods gravely. "And what did you do?" "I thought about my mother, about Padme, about you, about everyone who's ever believed in me, and I realized that giving into anger would mean betraying all of you, becoming exactly what Palpatine wanted me to become." "That's the difference, Anakin." Obi-Wan's voice is warm. "That's what makes you the chosen one, not your power, not your destiny, your heart." The aftermath is chaotic. The revelation that the Chancellor was a Sith Lord rocks the Republic to its foundations. There are investigations, resignations, accusations, reforms. The war continues for months before the Separatist leadership collapses and peace is finally restored. It is messy and complicated, and nothing like the simple victory that holodramas would later portray. But through it all, Anakin Skywalker stands at the center of a new beginning. He is granted the rank of Master, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. The Council acknowledges that their treatment of him was flawed, that their rules were too rigid, that their fear of attachment blinded them to the true nature of the Force. Changes are made. Policies are reformed. The Jedi Order begins a slow transformation that will take generations to complete. The ceremony is simple but meaningful. Anakin kneels before the assembled council while Yoda places his hand on the young Jedi's head. The Force hums with approval, with validation, with something almost like joy. "Rise, Master Skywalker," Yoda intones. "Proven yourself you have, not through power alone, but through wisdom, through compassion, through love." The Order, wrong it was. Blind we were, but learned we have, thanks to you. Anakin rises, feeling the weight of the new title. It's what he always wanted. Recognition, acceptance, proof that he belongs. But now that he has it, he realizes that it doesn't matter as much as he once thought. The title is just words. What matters is what he does with it. "Thank you, Masters. But I didn't do this alone. Without my mother, I would have been lost. Without Obi-Wan, I would have stumbled. Without Padme, I would have fallen. Whatever I've accomplished, it belongs to all of them as much as it belongs to me." The council members exchange glances. Some nod in understanding. Others look thoughtful. Mace Windu, whose skepticism of Anakin was legendary, offers a rare smile. "That's the first wise thing you've ever said, Skywalker. Perhaps there's hope for you yet." Laughter ripples through the chamber, genuine and warm. For the first time in years, the Jedi Council feels like a family rather than a tribunal. Anakin allows himself to hope that this is the beginning of something better. And Anakin goes home. He finds Padme waiting for him at the apartment they share, her eyes bright with relief. He holds her for a long time, saying nothing, just grateful that they survived, that they're together, that they have a future. "It's over," she whispers. "It's really over." "No," he says, smiling. "It's just beginning." Months later, Padme gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl, Luke and Leia. They are born in peace, in a hospital filled with light, surrounded by everyone who loves them. Shmi holds her grandchildren and weeps with joy. Obi-Wan looks on with a smile that speaks of hope. And Anakin, the former slave boy from Tatooine, the chosen one who chose love over fear, watches his family and feels complete. The birth is the happiest moment of Anakin's life. He holds each twin in turn, marveling at how small they are, how perfect. Luke opens his eyes and seems to look directly at his father, and Anakin feels an instant connection through the Force. Leia grabs his finger with surprising strength, and he laughs with pure joy. "They're beautiful," he whispers. "They're absolutely beautiful." Padme, exhausted but radiant, reaches for his hand. "They have your eyes and your spirit," Anakin replies. "Thank the Force." Shmi approaches the bed, her face wet with tears. She looks at the twins, then at her son, then back at the twins. "I never imagined this," she says. "When I was on Tatooine, when I thought I would die a slave, I never could have imagined this. Grandchildren, born free, in a galaxy at peace." Anakin embraces his mother carefully, mindful of the babies. "You made this possible, Mom. All of it. If you hadn't raised me the way you did, if you hadn't taught me to hope, none of this would exist. We made it together," Shmi says. "All of us. That's the only way anything good ever gets made." Obi-Wan steps forward, his expression unusually emotional. "May I?" Anakin hands him Luke, and the Jedi Master cradles the baby with unexpected gentleness. "Strong in the Force, this one. I can feel it already." "Both of them," Anakin confirms. "They're going to be remarkable." "They already are," Obi-Wan says. "They're Skywalkers." In the years that follow, he trains a new generation of Jedi. He teaches them the lessons he learned, not just about lightsabers and the Force, but about love and connection and the strength that comes from belonging. His children grow up knowing both of their parents, knowing their grandmother, knowing that they are part of something larger than themselves. And sometimes, late at night, Anakin looks up at the stars and thinks about how different things could have been. He thinks about the darkness that almost claimed him, the fear that almost consumed him, the lonely, angry boy he could have become if not for one simple act of compassion. He thinks about Qui-Gon Jinn, returning to Tatooine against all wisdom and expectation. He thinks about his mother, freed from slavery and given a new life. He thinks about all the choices that led him here, to this moment, to this family, to this peace. And he knows, with absolute certainty, that this is what the Force always intended. Not tragedy, not darkness, not the fall of heroes and the rise of empires, just love. Love conquering fear, love defeating hate, love saving the galaxy, one choice at a time. On Coruscant, in the Jedi temple that has stood for 1,000 generations, Master Anakin Skywalker watches the sunrise with his family. His mother sits beside him, older now but still strong, still the foundation on which everything else was built. His wife holds their daughter. His son practices lightsaber forms in the garden below. "It's beautiful," Shmi says quietly. "I never imagined anything like this, Annie. Not in my wildest dreams." "Neither did I," Anakin admits. "But here we are. Here we are," she agrees. "Where we were always meant to be." In the distance, the sun climbs higher, bathing the galaxy in light. Ships dart between the towers. People go about their lives. The Republic endures, flawed but improving, struggling toward the ideals it claims to represent. And somewhere in the Force, Qui-Gon Jinn watches it all with a smile. He made a choice, years ago, to return to Tatooine, to right a wrong, to free a woman who deserved to be free. It seemed like such a small thing at the time. Just one life, just one act of compassion. But the Force works through small things, through choices, through love. And this time, love won. The years continue to pass. Luke and Leia grow into remarkable young people, each inheriting different aspects of their parents' gifts. Luke has his father's raw power in the Force, that same instinctive connection that made Anakin the chosen one. But he also has his grandmother's patience, her quiet wisdom, her ability to see the good in everyone. Leia has her mother's fire, her political acumen, her determination to fight for what's right. She also has her father's stubbornness, though she would never admit it. Anakin trains them both, though they take different paths. Luke embraces the Jedi tradition wholeheartedly, becoming a Padawan at the appropriate age and advancing through the ranks with steady determination. He's not as naturally gifted as his father in some ways, lacking that supernatural piloting ability and raw combat instinct. But he makes up for it with dedication, with empathy, with a connection to the living force that even Master Yoda finds impressive. Leia's path is different. She trains in the Force, learning to use her gifts, but her true calling lies elsewhere. She follows her mother into politics, becoming the youngest senator in Republic history. But unlike the senators who came before her, she carries a lightsaber beneath her robes. She can negotiate peace treaties and hold her own in a duel. She becomes a bridge between the political and spiritual worlds, exactly the kind of leader the galaxy needs in the post-war era. And through it all, Shmi remains. She grows older, of course. Her hair turns silver, her movements slow, but her mind stays sharp, and her heart stays warm. She becomes the matriarch of the Skywalker family, the foundation on which everything else is built. Jedi Knights seek her counsel. Senators value her perspective. Children in the temple creche consider her a surrogate grandmother. One evening, as the sun sets over Coruscant, Anakin finds his mother sitting in her favorite spot overlooking the city. He settles beside her, and for a long moment, they simply watch the lights come on across the endless urban landscape. "Do you ever think about Tatooine?" he asks quietly. Shmi considers the question. Sometimes, but not with longing. Not anymore. "That place shaped me, Ani. It taught me to survive, to endure, to hope even when hope seemed foolish. But it was never my home. Home is where the people you love are, and everyone I love is here." Anakin nods slowly. "I used to hate that planet, the sand, the heat, the memories. But now I understand that it wasn't the planet that was wrong. It was what people did there. The slavery, the exploitation, the way the galaxy just looked away and pretended it wasn't happening." Shmi reaches over and squeezes his hand. "You're changing that. The reforms you've pushed for, the missions you've led. Slavery in the Outer Rim is declining. It's not gone. Not yet. But it's better than it was. You're making a difference." "We're making a difference," Anakin corrects. "All of us. Padme's legislation, Leia's advocacy, the Jedi missions. It's a collective effort, and it all started with you. With one woman who never stopped hoping that things could be better." They sit in comfortable silence as the stars emerge overhead. Somewhere in the temple below, Luke is teaching a class of younglings. Somewhere in the Senate district, Leia is negotiating a trade agreement. Somewhere in their apartment, Padme is reviewing legislation for the morning session. The galaxy spins on, vast and complex and imperfect, but it's moving in the right direction. Slowly, painfully, but moving. "I have no regrets," Shmi says finally. "Not one. Every hardship I endured, every sacrifice I made, it all led here. To this moment, to this family, to watching my grandchildren grow up free. If I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't, because it might mean losing this." Anakin's throat tightens with emotion. "Mom, I need you to know something. If it wasn't for you, I would have become something terrible. I can feel it sometimes, the shadow of who I might have been. Angry, afraid, consumed by darkness. You saved me from that. Not Qui-Gon, not the Jedi. You." Shmi smiles, and in that smile is everything that matters. "That's what mothers do, Annie. We save our children, even when they don't realize they need saving. Especially then." She pauses, looking out at the city lights. "You know, I used to pray. When I was a slave, I would pray to whatever gods might be listening, asking them to give you a better life. I didn't know what form that would take. I just knew I wanted you to be free, to be happy, to be loved. And now look," she continues. "Look at what you've become. Not just a Jedi, but a good man, a loving husband, a wonderful father, everything I ever hoped for you and more. Sometimes I think the Force was listening to those prayers all along. It just took its time answering them." Anakin's throat tightens with emotion. "Mom, I need you to know something. If it wasn't for you, I would have become something terrible. I can feel it sometimes, the shadow of who I might have been, angry, afraid, consumed by darkness. You saved me from that. Not Qui-Gon, not the Jedi. You. Shmi smiles, and in that smile is everything that matters. That's what mothers do, Ani. We save our children, even when they don't realize they need saving, especially then. They sit together as the stars wheel overhead. Mother and son, two former slaves who now stand at the center of galactic history. The Force flows around them, through them, connecting them to each other and to everything else. In this moment, all the pain of the past seems worth it. All the struggles and sacrifices have led here, to this quiet evening, to this perfect peace. Thank you, Anakin says finally, for everything. Shmi squeezes his hand. Thank you for coming back for me, for never forgetting. How could I forget? Anakin replies. You're my mother. You're the best person I've ever known. Now you're just flattering me. Is it flattery if it's true? They both laugh, the sound carrying across the temple gardens. Somewhere below, Luke is playing with the younglings. Somewhere in the city, Leia is changing the galaxy one policy at a time. Somewhere, Padme is making dinner and humming to herself. The family that Shmi built, through hope and love and endurance, continues to grow and thrive. In the Senate chambers, the debate over the Outer Rim Development Initiative is reaching its climax. Senator Leia Skywalker stands at her podium, her voice ringing through the vast chamber with the same passion that made her mother famous a generation ago. She speaks of the forgotten worlds on the galaxy's edge, the people left behind, the systems that never recovered from the clone wars because no one cared enough to help them rebuild. For too long, she declares, we have defined the Republic by its core worlds, Coruscant, Alderaan, Chandrila. These are great planets, noble planets, but they are not the Republic. The Republic is every child who looks up at the stars and dreams of something better. Every farmer who works the soil and hopes for a fair price. Every family that just wants to live in peace, free from exploitation and war. She gestures toward the massive holographic display showing a map of the Outer Rim. These systems have been neglected for generations. They were the battlegrounds of the Clone Wars, and when the fighting stopped, we simply moved on. We left them to deal with the wreckage. Is it any wonder that crime flourished in the vacuum we created? Is it any wonder that people lost faith in the Republic that abandoned them? The senators murmur among themselves. Some are sympathetic, others are skeptical. A few are openly hostile, calculating the political costs of such an ambitious program. But Leia doesn't waver. She inherited her father's stubbornness and her mother's conviction, and she intends to use both. My grandfather once told me about the Outer Rim. Not the sanitized version we learned in history classes, but the truth. The slavery that operated openly because no one cared enough to stop it. The poverty that existed because there was more profit in exploitation than development. The hopelessness that drove people to desperate measures because they saw no other way. She pauses, letting her words sink in. He also told me about the day a Jedi Master returned to Tatooine and freed his mother from bondage. One act of compassion that changed everything. One choice that rippled out across decades, affecting the fate of the entire galaxy. That's what we're proposing here today. Not just an economic initiative, not just a political program, an act of compassion, a choice to care about people we've never met, in places we've never been. The vote, when it comes, is closer than Leia would like. But it passes. The Outer Rim Development Initiative becomes law, beginning a generations-long project to bring prosperity and justice to the galaxy's forgotten corners. It's not a perfect victory. Nothing ever is. But it's a start. Afterward, Leia finds her father waiting in the corridor outside the Senate chamber. He's wearing simple robes, his lightsaber hanging at his hip, looking nothing like the legendary hero he's become. just a proud father watching his daughter change the world. "You were magnificent," he says simply. Leia allows herself a small smile. "I learned from the best. Mom's rhetoric, Dad's stubbornness, a winning combination." They walk together through the corridors, past senators and aides and droids, past the endless bustle of Republican governance. Anakin remembers walking these same halls as a young Jedi, uncertain of his place, haunted by fears he couldn't name. Now he walks them with confidence, with purpose, with the knowledge that he belongs. "How's Mom?" Leia asks. "Padme," she means. Shmi has always been Grandma, busy as ever. She's drafting the implementation framework for your initiative. Says she wants to make sure it actually works instead of getting buried in bureaucracy. Leia laughs. That's Mom. Never met a system she couldn't reform. They emerge onto a balcony overlooking the city, the same kind of view that Shmi loves so much. Father and daughter stand there together, watching the traffic flow between the towers, contemplating the future they're building. "Dad," Leia says quietly, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if things had been different? If Qui-Gon hadn't gone back for Grandma?" Anakin is silent for a long moment. "Sometimes. In dreams, mostly. I see this other version of myself, angry, afraid, alone. He made choices that I never had to make because I had people who loved me, who kept me grounded, who reminded me who I was when I was in danger of forgetting. And Palpatine, in those dreams, Palpatine wins, not through strength but through isolation. He separates me from everyone I love, and then he fills the emptiness with darkness. By the time I realize what's happening, it's too late." Leia shudders. "That's terrifying." "It is." Anakin turns to face his daughter, his expression serious. "But it's also a reminder. Evil doesn't win through grand battles or dramatic confrontations. It wins by making people feel alone, by convincing them that no one cares, that no one can help, that the only way forward is through darkness. The most powerful thing we can do to fight evil is to love each other, to stay connected, to never let anyone feel like they're facing the galaxy alone." Leia nods slowly, absorbing his words. "Is that why you teach that to your students? About the importance of attachment?" "Partly. The old order got a lot of things right, but they were wrong about attachment. They thought that loving someone made you vulnerable to the dark side, and they weren't entirely wrong. Love can be twisted. It can become possession, obsession, fear of loss. But the answer isn't to abandon love. The answer is to love properly, to love with an open hand instead of a closed fist, to cherish without clinging, to care without controlling. That's hard," Leia admits. "Everything worthwhile is hard, but it's also the only path to true peace, not just in the galaxy, but in ourselves." In the Jedi Temple, Luke Skywalker sits in meditation. Around him, a circle of younglings attempts to follow his example, with varying degrees of success. Some have achieved genuine focus, their small forms still and serene. Others fidget, peeking through half-closed eyes, struggling with the discipline that meditation requires. Luke doesn't mind. He remembers what it was like to be their age, restless and eager, wanting to skip ahead to the exciting parts of training. His father used to tell him that the boring parts were actually the most important, and Luke didn't believe him until years later. Now he teaches the same lesson to a new generation, hoping they'll understand sooner than he did. When the session ends, the younglings bow respectfully and scatter toward their next class. Luke remains seated, enjoying the quiet of the meditation chamber. The Force flows around him, through him, connecting him to everything and everyone. He can sense his family scattered across the temple and the city, his father meeting with the council, his mother in her office, his sister in the Senate, his grandmother in her quarters, resting after a long morning of work. And beyond them, spreading out in ever-widening circles, he senses the billions upon billions of lives that make up the galaxy. Joyful lives and sorrowful ones. Lives of purpose and lives of desperation. Lives touched by the Force and lives utterly unaware of it. All of them connected, all of them mattering. It's overwhelming sometimes. The sheer scale of existence, the weight of responsibility that comes with being a Jedi, with being a Skywalker, with being part of a legacy that spans generations. But Luke has learned to carry that weight without being crushed by it. He focuses on what's in front of him, the next student, the next mission, the next choice. The galaxy is changed one decision at a time, and every decision counts. Master Skywalker. Luke opens his eyes to find a young Togruta Padawan standing at the entrance to the meditation chamber. She's perhaps 14 years old, her montrals just beginning to develop, her expression nervous. Yes, Asara. Luke rises gracefully, smiling to put her at ease. What is it? Master Kenobi is looking for you. He says it's urgent. Luke nods and follows the Padawan through the temple corridors. Obi-Wan Kenobi, now elderly but still sharp, has become something of a grandfather figure to the young Skywalkers. He trained Anakin, advised him through his darkest moments, stood beside him in the final battle against Sidious. Now he serves as one of the senior members of the Council, his wisdom earned through decades of service. Luke finds him in the Council chamber, standing before a holographic display that shows a distant star system. The older Jedi turns as Luke enters, his weathered face creased with concern. "What's wrong?" Luke asks immediately. Obi-Wan gestures toward the display. "We've received reports from the Kessel sector. Remnants of the old Separatist military have been gathering there. Former generals, rogue droids, mercenaries. They're calling themselves the New Techno-Union." Luke frowns. "I thought the Separatist threat was neutralized years ago. The organized threat, yes, but ideology doesn't die easily. There are still those who believe in what the Confederacy represented. Opposition to the Republic, independence from galactic governance. They've been quiet for a long time, but it seems they're ready to act. What are they planning? We don't know for certain, but our intelligence suggests they're building something. A weapon of some kind. Something that could threaten Republic worlds." Luke studies the display, his mind already working through the possibilities. They haven't made any demands. No declaration of war. Nothing. Which is what concerns me. They're being careful, methodical. This isn't a desperate act of rebellion. This is something planned. Luke nods slowly. "Then we need to find out more before we act. Send a team for reconnaissance. See what we're actually dealing with." "Agreed. And, Luke, I'd like you to lead the team." Luke meets Obi-Wan's eyes. There's more going on here than a simple reconnaissance mission, he can tell. Something that the older Jedi isn't saying. "Why me?" Luke asks quietly. "You have more experienced masters available." Obi-Wan's expression softens. "Because this is the kind of mission your father would have led once. And because I've watched you grow, Luke. I've seen the man you're becoming. You have your father's courage, your mother's compassion, your grandmother's wisdom, and something else, something uniquely your own. The ability to see the light in the darkest places. If there's a chance to resolve this without bloodshed, you'll find it." Luke considers this. He thinks about his father's stories of the Clone Wars, the battles, the losses, the way violence, even necessary violence, leaves scars that never fully heal. He thinks about the lessons he's learned about compassion and connection, about fighting evil without becoming evil in the process. "I'll do it," he says. "But I'm going to try to talk to them first, before any fighting starts. I want to understand why they're doing this." Obi-Wan smiles, and there's pride in that smile. "That's exactly why I'm sending you." The mission to the Kessel sector takes 3 weeks. Luke leads a small team of Jedi Knights and Republic intelligence operatives carefully approaching the region where the new Techno-Union has established its base. They gather information, they observe, they wait for the right moment. What Luke finds is not what he expected. The new Techno-Union isn't building a weapon of mass destruction. They're building a fleet designed for one purpose: evacuation. He infiltrates their base alone, using the Force to move unseen, and what he witnesses changes his understanding of the situation entirely. The Separatist remnants aren't preparing for war. They're preparing to flee, to take their people and leave Republic space entirely, seeking a new home in the unknown regions. Their leader is a former Separatist general named Varric Solis. He's old now, scarred by the Clone Wars, haunted by memories of battles lost and friends killed. When Luke reveals himself, Varric reaches for his blaster, but Luke makes no move to draw his lightsaber. "I'm not here to fight," Luke says calmly. "I'm here to understand." Their conversation lasts for hours. Varric tells him about the aftermath of the Clone Wars, about the Separatist planets that were punished for their rebellion, stripped of resources and rights, treated as conquered territories rather than fellow members of the Republic, about the families torn apart, the children who grew up in the shadow of defeat, the generation that learned to hate the Republic because the Republic gave them nothing but pain. "We don't want war," Varric says, his voice heavy with weariness. "We've had enough war to last 1,000 lifetimes. We just want to be left alone, to find somewhere we can live without the Republic's boot on our necks." Luke listens. He thinks about his grandmother, who spent decades in slavery because the Republic looked the other way. He thinks about his father's initiative, working to bring justice to the Outer Rim. He thinks about the gap between the Republic's ideals and its reality. "What if there was another way?" Luke asks finally. "What if instead of running, you stayed and fought for change? Not with weapons, but with words, with votes, with the same determination that built those ships." Varric laughs bitterly. "The Senate would never listen to us. We're the enemy, the defeated. They see us as traitors and terrorists. They might surprise you. There are people in the Senate who want reform, who understand that the Republic failed the Outer Rim. My sister is one of them, my mother. They've been pushing for change for years, but they need allies. People who can speak from experience about what the Republic did wrong." The former general stares at Luke for a long moment. "You're serious?" "I am. I'm not saying it would be easy. Change never is. But it's possible, and it would be better than running. Better than spending the rest of your lives as fugitives." In the end, Varric agrees to meet with Luke's sister. The negotiations are difficult. There's suspicion on both sides, old wounds that haven't healed, legitimate grievances that need to be addressed. But gradually, painfully, progress is made. The new Techno-Union doesn't become the fleet of refugees it was meant to be. Instead, it becomes something else, a political movement. A voice for the forgotten systems that suffered under both the Republic and the Separatists. An advocacy group that pushes for reform not through violence but through the democratic process. It's not a perfect solution. Nothing ever is, but it's better than the alternative. When Luke returns to Coruscant, his father is waiting for him. Anakin's expression is complex, a mixture of pride and something else. Something that might be recognition. "Obi-Wan told me what you did," Anakin says. "Finding a peaceful solution when everyone expected war. Seeing the humanity in people the galaxy wrote off as enemies." "I just did what you taught me," Luke replies. Everyone has a story. Everyone has reasons for what they do. Understanding those reasons is the first step toward peace. Anakin shakes his head slowly. "I taught you the words, but you made them real. You became something I always hoped I could be but never quite managed. A true peacemaker." They walked together through the temple gardens, father and son, past fountains and meditation alcoves and young Padawans practicing their forms. The evening light filters through the transparisteel ceiling, painting everything in shades of gold. "Dad?" Luke says eventually. Can I ask you something? Anything? Do you ever feel like you're living in someone else's shadow? Like no matter what you accomplish, you'll always be compared to what came before? Anakin considers the question. I used to. When I was your age, I constantly felt like I had to prove myself. To the Council, to Obi-Wan, to everyone who doubted that a slave boy from Tatooine could become a Jedi. It took me years to realize that I wasn't competing with anyone. I was just trying to become the best version of myself. And now, Luke presses, now that you're the legendary hero who killed a Sith Lord and saved the Republic? Anakin laughs. Now I'm the old man who embarrasses his children with stories they've heard 100 times. Now I'm the grandfather who spoils his grandchildren and pretends not to notice when they stay up past bedtime. The legend, such as it is, belongs to history. My life belongs to the people I love. Luke absorbs this. He thinks about the expectations that come with being a Skywalker, with being the son of the Chosen One. He thinks about the pressure to match his father's legacy, to live up to the family name. And he realizes, perhaps for the first time, that none of that matters. What matters is the choice in front of him. The next decision, the person he's becoming with each step he takes. Thanks, Dad, he says quietly. Anakin puts an arm around his son's shoulders. Any time, that's what fathers are for. Shmi Skywalker passes peacefully in her sleep at the age of 82. She goes surrounded by her family, with Anakin holding one hand and Padme holding the other, with Luke and Leia and her great-grandchildren gathered close. Her funeral is a quiet affair, as she would have wanted. No grand ceremonies or political dignitaries, just the people who loved her, sharing memories and tears, celebrating a life that began in chains and ended in freedom. Anakin speaks at the service. His voice breaks several times, but he pushes through. My mother was the strongest person I ever knew, not because she could lift objects with the Force or defeat enemies in battle, but because she never lost hope. Through decades of slavery, through hardship and loss, through everything the galaxy threw at her, she kept believing that things could be better. And she was right. Things can be better, but only if we're willing to do the work, to make the choices, to love each other even when it's hard. He pauses, gathering himself. She taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that matters. It's what separates us from the darkness. She loved me when I was a slave boy with nothing to offer. She loved me when I became a Jedi and couldn't always be there. She loved me when I made mistakes, when I stumbled, when I failed to live up to my potential. And that love, unconditional and eternal, is what made me who I am. He looks at his family, at the people who have gathered to honor Shmi's memory. If you want to honor her, love someone who needs it, free someone who's in chains, show compassion to someone the galaxy has forgotten. That's what she would want. That's her legacy. Not monuments or memorials, but simple acts of kindness rippling out forever. After the service, Anakin sits alone in Shmi's quarters. He hasn't been able to bring himself to pack up her things yet. The room still smells like her. Her books are still on the shelves. Her tea service is still on the table where she left it. Padme finds him there, staring at a hollow of his mother as a young woman on Tatooine. She sits beside him and takes his hand. I miss her, Anakin says simply. I know. Padme leans her head against his shoulder. I miss her too. I keep thinking about that day on Tatooine, when Qui-Gon came back for her. If he hadn't done that, everything would be different. I would be different, and not in a good way. But he did, Padme says. That's what matters. He made a choice, and that choice changed the galaxy. Anakin nods slowly. One choice. That's all it takes sometimes. One moment of compassion. One decision to do the right thing even when it's hard. My mother understood that. She made 1,000,000 small choices every day, choices to be kind and patient and loving. And those choices built a life. A family, a legacy. He looks at the hollow again, at his mother's smile. I'm going to miss her for the rest of my life, but I'm also grateful. Grateful for every moment we had, every conversation, every shared meal, every time she reminded me who I am when I was in danger of forgetting. That's more than many people get. That's everything. Padme squeezes his hand. She would be proud of you, Ani. So proud. I hope so. Anakin finally sets down the hollow and turns to face his wife. I really hope so. The years continue to pass. Luke becomes a master on the Jedi Council. Leia becomes Supreme Chancellor, leading the Republic through an era of unprecedented reform. Their children grow up, have children of their own, carry the Skywalker legacy forward into new generations. Anakin grows old. His hair turns gray, then white. His movements slow. But his connection to the Force remains strong, perhaps stronger than ever. He spends his final years teaching, gardening, playing with his great-grandchildren. He writes his memoirs, not for publication, but so his family will understand where they came from. On the last page he writes, I have lived a fortunate life, not because I was the chosen one or the hero of the Clone Wars or any of the grand titles that history has given me, but because I was loved. My mother loved me when I had nothing. Padme loved me when I was broken. My children love me even when I'm a stubborn old man who refuses to admit he's wrong. That love is the only thing that matters. It's the only power worth having. If you remember nothing else from my story, remember this. Love each other, fiercely, unconditionally, without reservation. Love is how we defeat the darkness. Love is how we save the galaxy. Love is everything. He passes away peacefully, surrounded by his family, just as his mother did. The galaxy mourns. Monuments are built, speeches are given, but the truest memorial is the change he left behind. A Jedi Order that embraces love instead of fearing it. A republic that cares for its most vulnerable citizens. A galaxy that's a little bit brighter than it would have been. And somewhere in the Force, reunited with those who went before, Anakin Skywalker finally rests. He's done his part. The rest is up to the living. The story doesn't end there, of course. Stories never really end. They just transform into new stories, new challenges, new choices. The galaxy will face other crises. Other villains will rise. Other heroes will be needed. But the foundation has been laid. The precedent has been set. And when future generations look back at this pivotal moment in galactic history, they'll see clearly what made the difference. Not armies or weapons, not political power or military might, just one choice, one act of compassion, one Jedi master returning to a desert planet to free a slave woman who had been abandoned. It seems like such a small thing, one life saved among billions. But that one life was the mother of the chosen one, and by saving her, by giving her son the stability and love he needed, the entire future changed. The Empire never rose. The Jedi were never destroyed. Billions who would have died in the darkness lived instead, and all because someone decided to do the right thing, even when it was inconvenient, even when the Council disapproved, even when there were easier paths to take. That's the lesson, really. The galaxy isn't saved by grand gestures or dramatic battles. It's saved by ordinary people making moral choices, day after day, when no one's watching. It's saved by compassion that expects no reward, by love that asks nothing in return. Qui-Gon Jinn understood that. Shmi Skywalker embodied it. Anakin learned it. And now, generations later, the galaxy still benefits from their wisdom. This is the world that could have been. This is the future that was always possible, waiting just beyond the next choice. A galaxy where love conquered fear, where the light held back the darkness, where the Skywalkers became a symbol of hope instead of tragedy. All because someone remembered that freeing a mother was just as important as training her son. All because the Jedi, for once, did the right thing. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.